What's up? What's up? How's it going, guys? Thanks for jumping on. As you pop on, if you've been on these before, I don't do them very often, but when I do like for you to hit the like button. It's up. Thank you, thank you. Excellent. How is the audio? Excellent. That's the number one complaint you guys give me is like sometimes the audio sucks on these. I'm Frank. Welcome to Yashu. Thanks for jumping on. We got some really great questions that have come in over the last few weeks. Obviously, we'll chat about the elephant in the room, which is all the Corona stuff going on, and actually did have some thoughtful questions in the comments just in regards to what this means for people in our space. Hold on one sec. Let's see if I'm going to try to do. I've never done live on Instagram. So while folks are popping in here, I'm going to jump on Instagram real quick. Well, Frank, that is a great question. We got some winners and definitely some losers. Some of them, we got one deal that actually in the toilet space is killing it right now because we make money off of selling bidets, and bidets are selling out like crazy. We have other things that are consumer stuff that's doing well, but I think won't do well for like very long, depending on where things go. All right, cool. I think we're good there. Let's see. Let's see. Cool. All right. Welcome. All right. I think we're live on Instagram as well. Awesome. Thanks for your patience, guys. So talking about my portfolio, Frank, yeah, so we've got a couple deals that have done really well. And this is kind of the importance of diversification. For years, I've talked about the importance of diversification within deals. One of the things that's generated some really, really great conversation and back and forth in the comments is now I'm also really pushing you guys to think about diversification internationally. But one of the great things about just having a diversified group of businesses is some are going to do well, some aren't going to do as well. And if you're diversified well, like it should balance out. I think with this, overall, everything's going to be down over time. But I think that, the balance will at least help to stave off just an overall crash or something like that in a well-balanced portfolio. What's up? So there's actually a lot of activity over on when as you come in, hit the like button just as a way to say hello or pop into the chat. All right, happy to dig into some more of that if you got to chat over specifically on the live. So one of them that came in is probably the one of the biggest things that people are thinking about right now is um, it was sent in by Begabel, I want to say. So, can you talk about how deal structuring will change in the wake of this pending recession? What creative ways can one leverage to acquire business when bank and PE funding dries up? So, one of the things, supposedly, a lot of bank financing available through SBA. So part of the proposal that's on the table and what's going to be signed in is that there's going to be liquidity that's given to SBICs, which are a lot of the entities that end up giving out SBA loans. So it actually could be a really huge opportunity for anybody who's been kind of on the fence and thinking you want to do a deal or you want to do a SBA loan, especially. I think it's going to scare a lot of people away, but there's actually going to be more money available if the bill that they want to get passed right now actually does get passed. And there's a lot of different bills. There's a lot of different things. Trump signed one thing today that's just kind of the beginning, but Congress also has something that I think they're just going to pass everything. I don't think you don't want to be the congressman that's saying, "Hey, let's not give out money." I think the interesting thing with all of this, though, is it goes back to that conversation that actually you and I had in the comments, where it's easy for a lot of people to say, yeah, we want the $1,000. We want to be paid. And, at the end of the day, even $1,000, if there really is a lockdown for 8 weeks and people aren't getting paid for regular jobs outside of government jobs and all those kinds of things, $1,000 doesn't do a whole lot. But, it's just that reminder that none of this stuff is really free. If they cut that check, it's coming out of debt. We have to pay for that money, which has the more long-term kind of consequences. But it'll be really great for the short term, especially for us getting into SBA loans, because we've got this kind of interesting conversation. If you're doing the kind of deals that we do, where we can access the loans on one end, and most of the small businesses just don't have the savings or the access to funds to be able to weather the storm that not this coming, the storm that we're in. I've had, for a lot of people reach out to me just over the last couple of weeks, and not even just in the US. It's like all over the world. I had a buddy that's in Germany, a friend that's in England, a buddy of mine that's over in Asia. And, for a lot of businesses, obviously for the offline businesses, they are in a world of hurt. I was talking to some buddies of mine just about a business that I sold that was retail business, and he's in the process of selling. And so he reached out literally. I mean, I sold him that business maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It's done really well for him. And he was in the middle of selling. He had somebody who wanted to buy the business from him. And obviously in the mix of all this, walked away. So we're just talking about options. And in that particular business, the overhead, even when I had it, may have been 20 grand a month. And so you think without employees, just like rent, insurance, just like the stuff that you have to pay. And so you think about, a business like that. It's retail. It's not a necessity. It's not even food where you can switch over and start doing delivery. I think that's an option for a lot of folks. It's going to be very tough. And even if you do have the cash reserves, you're in that decision of, do I want to spend my cash reserve on, just not even keeping the doors open, but just paying my expenses while nobody's gonna come to the door. Not even like, just to look around. Like literally, people aren't doing just the optional shopping and that kind of thing. So a lot of those businesses are going to be hurting. I was just thinking about what would I do in the businesses that I owned before? And I think about this forum, and there's going to be a lot of those that are really desperate to sell, and so it's going to be a neat opportunity because on one end, we've got the opportunity to borrow money, and then you've got businesses that the further we get into this, the more desperate they're going to be to exit. All right, let's talk a little bit about Alvin's question, which is how does one choose someone to do a joint venture with, and how do you sell them? I think this is going to be, with a lot of strategies that we talk about, we're basically getting into a buyer's into a buyer's market and out of the seller's market. And so with all of these strategies, I think it's going to be a lot easier to sell them, but it's going to be a lot tougher to produce results. So what Alvin's talking about, and shout out to you, Alvin Dixon. What Alvin's talking about is one of the strategies that I've mentioned before on the channel, where we go into a business, we do a joint venture with that business instead of buying the business, and we see, all right, this business has some issues, it has some problems, and we want to be able to not have the liabilities that are associated with the business, but still have the opportunity to grow it and maybe eventually end up buying it. So, when you're dealing with that kind of situation and you're trying to convince the person that you're going to be able to help grow that business, if you don't have the opportunity to grow it and there are no customers there, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if you go in and you get the joint venture. So I think that's going to be the tough thing in the coming economy. Something in the coming economy is, how in the world do you grow the business after you convince them? But if you go in and you say, yeah, I can grow your business, there are going to be a lot of business owners that will take you up on that. So, that part of the question of how do you sell them won't be as tough as it has been. When that seller is, or the business owner is sitting pretty, there isn't a lot to try to convince them, because they've got plenty of customers, they're making a ton of money, they know some things that they can do in the business. So the toughest part of this is going to be having the creativity after you get them to agree to doing the joint venture with you, having the creativity to come up with some ways to grow that business. All right, let's see. I'll pop over here and then I'll get back to some of the other questions from older videos. What industries, niches do you see being well positioned for LBOs? Speaking of which, I wanted to mention, you guys, I just wrapped up reading this book, Money Machine. It's really, really good book. It's KKR's story. They basically started what is now the modern private equity era or whatever. There was kind of a pre-private equity era, which was mostly conglomerates. It was businesses that were buying and selling, or mostly just buying businesses to become these big conglomerates, and then went through a stage of exiting all those. And KKR hit that at the right moment, where they were there with one of the first private equity funds to buy a lot of those deals. Businesses with a lot of assets. So you want to think transport. I'm helping a client right now that is in Argentina. We're trying to source a transportation company for them. I did, Frank. I'm sorry. There's too many. I had to cut off the IG because just like too many comments and things going on over there. So yeah, I did see that Ackerman interview, by the way. That's something interesting to chat about if you have any questions or thoughts on that. But asset heavy businesses, transportation, manufacturing, things that people are still going to want are things that are going to be poised to grow in a big way as the economy turns around. I would also pay a lot of attention to because a lot of times that determines the real winners. So if there is a heavy focus on financial companies or financing companies, that could be an interesting place to go. Actually, just side note, one of the things that we're looking at is actually starting the SBIC. Just because we already know that's one of the places that a lot of money is going to go. So you want to look at where's the flow of money and then get in front of it. And then the other side of that is asset heavy businesses, because I think there are going to be a lot of opportunities to actually buy businesses for less than the value of those assets, because I think there are going to be a lot of folks that just walk away from the business. This is about to be a very, very, if you are in buying businesses, we've talked a lot before about baby boomers and the boomers being about to be ready to sell and all those businesses coming on the market. And so you just put yourself in their position, if you're older, you already just had to freaking survive the coronavirus. Even if your business is okay, you're like, do I want to spend any more time worried about this business and dealing with these headaches? So you got all of the stress of just like making it through, and you're running this distraction of the coronavirus. And so if you make it to the end, it's just like, I think there are going to be a lot of those people that walk away from their business. And, I've told stories before of people knowing who I am, know that I buy businesses. They close a successful, profitable business down. I'm like, why didn't you talk to me about buying it? And they're just like, oh, I didn't think you'd be interested. It's like, so imagine the person that doesn't even know that there are people like us out there, that doesn't know that there is this whole thing of business buyers, because the average person doesn't. You see how small these channels are. You combine every channel that talks about private equity, micro private equity, any of the stuff that we talk about, combine all of those. And then you combine all of the ones that talk about start a business from scratch. And you start to realize we know about this. This is familiar to us, but it's just not something that the average person, even a lot of business owners, are focused on. And so especially if they hit hard times, they're just going to be motivated to walk away from the business. I remember one deal that I did on a wine business years ago where, we ended up just structuring, we talk about joint ventures, but sometimes just structuring a deal, sometimes just helping two parties realize that they have some mutually beneficial things. And so this couple, they built this thing. It was a lot of work to build this business. They did an amazing job. And I didn't like the business because they were just getting to break even point. I talk to you guys all the time about the fact that we want to focus on businesses that are making money and cash flow positive. Unless you can just get the keys. And I think there will be a lot of times where we just get the keys. So in that case, we were able to go to the landlord and say, hey, this thing is paying your rent and your rent is really high. We think it's worth it for you to buy this business from them in order to keep it, in order to keep them, because basically they had the option of selling the assets, getting some cash, and walking away from the business, and he wasn't going to get the rent. But if I bought the business, and I was paying him a pretty high rent rate, then I wasn't going to make much money. So I essentially told them, like, hey, I'm going to represent you. I'm going to help you sell this business and get more money than you would for the assets. And I just want a percentage of that. And so this is where I think this is going to be a time where you guys have to think creatively. You know what I mean? It's not going to be a time of just, oh, I'm just going to go buy a business. It's going to be crazy situations, but this is one of those really cool examples where you can create a win-win. And so I went to the landlord. I said, hey, if these people close down, you're going to have to clean out the space, pay for all of that, go a few months waiting on the next tenant. The other tenant's probably going to want a different build out. You have to spend money on that. And then eventually you'll start to make rent again. The business, they've done a great job building business. It's pretty easy to run. So you can come in, buy the business, maybe even find another buyer that comes in, but then you never miss a month of rent. And that becomes your income from the business that you can now grow. And he loved the idea, and we ended up brokering that deal, which was a really neat deal. So those are some of the cool opportunities that will come up in this next recession. All right. M Sway, what's up? If you made it, man, it's not at a crazy random time, and I announced it, so I'm glad you were able to make it. Frank, Ackman's comments about PE were interesting. He basically said PE could go bankrupt. Hilton could go to zero. I mean, he was really going hardcore. He was really going hardcore. And so what Frank is talking about is the Ackman interview. He was on CNBC and essentially was saying that things are going to be very, very bad. Just the fact that, people aren't traveling, people aren't going to hotels in the travel industry, they're going to be hit really hard. I mean, some of you guys already know that the airlines are already saying that they want to bail out, and we're like a few days into this, it's like already. So they already want a bailout, and so you just can imagine, man, if a company that is that big and has that many employees and they don't have the financial reserves to make it through even a week of this, small businesses are definitely not going to be prepared. But that was, some very interesting comments from Bill. What's up, Miss Ridley? Thanks. That was a neat one. I love when y'all's questions made me think of some of the cool deals in the past. I thought he was going to jump out the window. Yeah, he feels like this is it's going to, if we don't do some drastic things, like this is the end. Sherry, what is up? Thanks for jumping on. Glad you're giving us great advice during this time when we are stuck. Yeah, we're stuck indoors. Thanks for jumping on. All right, I'm going to pop back over and ask one of the other questions that went in. I'll do a couple more of these and we'll bounce out of here. So where's everybody located? Put your city in the comments section, if you don't mind. I'm also curious if anybody knows that have come in contact with other people and are on quarantine and all that, but not anybody personally that has it. So I'm wondering what that looks like, how they're doing. All right, Mr. Sam, what's up? So Sam says, what I would like to know is what effect will the coronavirus have on deals attempting to get done? So I mentioned a sec just about my friend on the Plato's too is trying to sell his business and, it didn't close. Are transactions still going through? People backing out of deals due to supply chain issues. Obviously, there's going to be some big losses in revenue for industries and verticals. Buyers may be stuck in due diligence periods, et cetera. Does the exchange of business from one hand to another slow down because of this? Would like to know what you see out there so far, Ace. So yes, I think there are. Well, first let's talk about some of the internet-based deals. A lot of internet-based deals will still close and that are in the middle of it right now. But I think that there are a lot of e-commerce and FBA deals that are people are going to walk away from. They're not gonna close because of the supply chain issues. I own a business that may be affected. Right now, we've got enough inventory, but it just depends how long this thing goes. And if our manufacturer isn't able to send, then that's going to really hurt us. We'll be closed for a while. So you have those kinds of deals which are directly affected. And then you have the other deals where I think the buyer just, number one, logically doesn't want to go through this headache of what we're about to deal with. Or number two, they're just spooked. So it could be a very logical decision where it's like, I think I'd rather for you to deal with this mess than for me to deal with it. And they may come back and buy it depending on where things end up. But even then, it could be at a discount. On the other side, I think it's the emotional side is just, I don't want to make any moves right now until this thing passes over. I'm afraid I don't want to invest in anything, and so I want to keep all my eggs kind of separate and in the basket that they're already in, not taking any new risks. So, again, I had like 19 new deals this week, which is that's a lot. It's a lot of deals to come out in 1 week, and we're just at the beginning of this. So I think we're going to see it's about to be a buyer's market. I think that's the good thing. But I think a lot of the transactions that are in the process right now, if I happen to be in the middle of a transaction right now, I personally would say, hey, let's wait. Thanks for the heads up on that. All right, so let's see what cities we got. We got Miami, St. Lucia. That's awesome. ATL, that's my old stomach ground. I was there for a little minute, loved it. North Carolina, very cool. Sherry's in ATL. Got Greensboro. Okay. We got Vegas, love Vegas. And it seems like I may be buffering a bit. Nesbitt asked if I offer training. Yeah, so we just started back. I've been talking a lot recently just about the recession, about the importance of thinking a little bit differently than we may have in the past, because I think that just a lot of what we've been able to do in the past as far as responses to recessions, we're just getting maxed out on what we're able to do. And so I'm looking to be able to invest in more deals and partner with my clients, for 80% of the deals that I invest in, they're run by my clients that I train. And so in this next recession, this is where, most of my first push into a lot of deals was after 2001. I actually lost the first business that I bought previous to 2001. And then I was able to get some really amazing deals after that recession in 2001 that were starting with a mortgage company. Then in 2008, of course, we had another one, and I had a big spurt of deals that were in retail and in the spa space. And so it's kind of been, I've been doing a lot of internet deals just in the meantime that haven't been these amazing rock bottom deals like I was able to do in those first two recessions. So a lot of these cool stories come from those. And so I've been preparing to kind of gear up, and you'll see, before this, just a lot of my videos are kind of focused on literally where we are right now. And me and my partners have been preparing, and we're looking to work with more folks, invest in more deals. Literally was just having a conversation with my man Sam. It's like, we have to get these guys, even the people that are in the program right now, like we got to make sure that they are ready so we can get as many deals done as possible. I think there's going to be a ton of opportunity. So yeah, if you are interested in working with us, let me get the email to you. I'm gonna plug it in the, just hit up Sam. He'll get you connected. We'll jump on a conference call and see if you're right, or you're the right fit. Like I said, the main reason that we do it is to be able to invest in deals with you. So this isn't something that we are, it's not something we talk a lot about publicly. You don't see a link under my videos like, hey, go sign up and pay here. We do connect with each person individually, make sure you're right fit, because if you are, I end up investing in the deal that you do. Cool. I'll do one more question that came in and we will bounce out of here. It's getting late. This is a good one. So I got one. I should talk about both of these. I've got one asking what countries do I like the most as far as investing in different countries. Right now, I'm a really big fan of South America just because I know it really well, and so that's one of the things. If you ask somebody who invests a lot in Costa Rica, hey, I want to invest overseas. Where do you think I should invest? They know Costa Rica, so that's probably going to be, the first one that they mention. So, I've spent some time in a lot of countries, over 30 countries. But as far as investing in those countries, I've done deals in Dominican, I've done deals in Colombia. One of my deals is going to be slaughtered, I'm sure. I'm just, I only want it just exceeded all expectation. I don't think the Car Wash deal is a unique deal. It's in Colombia. I'm a big fan of Argentina, but not. And so I always want to talk about the place I've done deals first. But places that interest me a lot, especially after this recession. I'm really excited to check out and learn a lot more about Georgia. I think there are going to be some big opportunities there, and really just Eastern Europe. Ukraine is interesting, but Georgia is probably the one that's at the top of my list, just based on research and understanding. Then I do want to do something in Asia, and so that will likely be Malaysia is at the top of the list, just because of their they really favor capitalism, and it's easy for a foreigner to own real estate. So those are top 5 that are the most interesting. You asked for 3, but I figured since the other ones were kind of close to the US, I would give you a couple others in Europe and in Asia. So again, we're happy to help you and walk you through that process. Some of the important things right now, I do think that this is a great time, as crazy as it is, to build a fund. So one of the things that we do is almost like a reverse merger into a fund. And so you can take one of these no money down deals and put it into a fund. And so this is a great time to start a fund, even though it's tougher. Good investors even will be interested once they get the opportunity. And once you explain, like, hey, here's this unique opportunity that exists, you can raise capital with that. But I also think, we do some things where you don't really have to even have capital, raise capital, where you're putting the joint venture assets or a reverse merger on a no money down deal into the fund. And what that allows you to do is to build your track record. So that during this time, where there's a lot of competition, there are no other buyers. It's tougher to set yourself apart in the economy that we were just in because everybody can raise money, everybody can go and pay cash for a deal because money's so plentiful. And then, but all the deals are selling for top dollar. It was a seller's market. So every deal was like, hey, like I want a 3 multiple, I want all cash, I want, I'm in a finance 10%. And, there are deals that we closed 6 months ago that I know if if we were closing now, we would just be getting this wholly different deal structure and all that. But that was the market that we're in. And that's why I started to slow down. The reason, I had an investor, investors still want to invest, guys. Luis, who some of you guys have interacted with, was just hitting me today, like, hey, I got these guys right here, like they really want to invest. What deals do we have? Like today, we have investors that reached out. But the reason that I slowed down is because as you guys have seen, way before Corona, I didn't know what the thing was going to be, but I've been saying like, hey, here we are. But the point of that is more just that smart investors get that this is the opportunity. They're positioning themselves. They're ready already. Like, hey, what's going on? What's in the pipeline that we can go back and renegotiate and get a better deal? So smart investors are going to be still interested. I think that this is still a great market to start a fund. Your returns are going to be a lot better than they were literally 2 months ago if you would have done your first deal. So this is the time, and it's very. If you've read about the Rothschilds, you understand Warren Buffett's philosophy, you know that this is when the wealthy get busy. This is when there's a reset. This is when there's an opportunity. And unfortunately, it's the masses that are scared and miss out on the opportunity because they're like, oh, everything's in flux. And it's like, obviously, that's when you want to invest. When you want to invest, it's when everything is at a discount. All right, we'll wrap up with it. Let's see what's in here and wrap up. Andrew, glad you can make it. Hey, I can't remember what that question was. Pop that question in here, Andrew. Let's see if I can get to it before we pop out of here. Ezzy, what's up? Is buying a multifamily considered buying a business if it's already making money? Absolutely. It's not so much just an asset heavy business. And so a lot of times, one of the reasons that I haven't done multifamily is just compared to the returns that I can get in some other deals, it just doesn't do as well, even with easily. But saying that my connection is unstable. Let me know if you guys can still hear or not. I just got a notification that I may be buffering. Let me know once you guys can hear me. I think it may have disconnected me. Cool. Good deal. So I think it's working. All right. So yes, the simple answer is yes. Thank you. Alvin, where do you look to invest in part of a business? To invest in part of a business. I'm not sure I understand that question, Alvin. Like if I want to invest in marketing or operation within the business. MSWay, one attorney in Miami tells me he's been seeing a lot of acquisition in real estate and private equity deals. Yeah, I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunities in both. Oh, yeah. So Andrew was asking when, one of the things I talked about is the importance of reading 10Ks. 10Ks are going to get a lot more interesting right now. But 10Ks are basically the reports from public companies that are talking about all the moves that they're making. And he was asking like, what are the reports that you like to look at and where do you look at those or what aspects of those do you look at? And so you were mentioning some deals like Netflix and that kind of thing. I don't just read like the normal companies or average companies. I focus on companies that are doing a lot of acquisitions of other companies. Companies like IAC. I think they're about to get really busy with a ton of acquisitions. I bet we're going to see Berkshire. That would be the other one, Berkshire Hathaway, which is the one I would really just start with, just because if somebody's taken those and put them into a book that has everything, all of the shareholder notes, all the shareholder letters since the beginning. And so I would read those annual reports as just the first thing. And you just literally are starting from the very beginning of Berkshire Hathaway and almost like reading the story from beginning to end. That's amazing training for being able to communicate to your investor. They're reaching out like, hey, what deals we got in the pipeline? Let's get invested. And part of that is just, your communication and clarity. And Warren Buffett's a master at that. There's a reason that he's become a superstar over those years. Awesome. All right. Everybody stay healthy, stay safe, stay indoors as much as possible. Thanks so much for jumping on.